Do you need a DUI lawyer in Pennsylvania? The honest answer. After a DUI arrest, most people ask the same question pretty quickly. Do I actually need a lawyer for this? And look, I'm a DUI attorney, so you might expect me to just say yes and move on. But I want to give you the honest answer because the real question underneath that one is actually more important. The real question is, what happens if you go into this alone and guess wrong? I'm Sean Quinlan, Pennsylvania DUI attorney based in Camp Hill. Let's talk about what's actually at stake and how to make a smart decision instead of a panicked one. So what's the honest legal answer? Let's start with the technical answer. No, Pennsylvania does not legally require you to hire a lawyer for a DUI. You have the right to represent yourself. But here's the thing. A DUI in Pennsylvania can affect far more than one court date and one fine. A conviction can affect your driver's license, your insurance costs, future sentencing if you're ever charged again, background checks, and in many jobs, your professional standing and your ability to keep working. If you drive for work, hold a CDL, work in healthcare, teach, or carry any kind of professional license, the fallout from a DUI conviction can spread fast and stay for years. So the question isn't really, am I legally required to have a lawyer? The question is, can this hurt me in ways I don't fully see yet? And the answer to that is yes. That's exactly why legal help matters. What's actually happening after your arrest? Let me paint a picture let me paint a picture that a lot of my clients describe. It's the morning after your arrest. You're in Cumberland County or Dauphin County, coffee's going cold, papers are spread across your kitchen table, and they read like another language. You're trying to figure out which date matters, what each charge means, and whether the thing you signed last night was a big deal or not. That moment is common, and it's more important than it feels. Here's what's typically happening in the background. Your case is moving on two separate tracks at the same time. Track one is the criminal case in court, the charge, the hearings, a potential conviction. Track two is what happens to your driving privileges through PennDOT, completely separate from court. That split catches a lot of people off guard constantly. You might think you're dealing with one court appearance and a fine, and not realize that a plea or conviction also triggers a license suspension you weren't expecting. In some refusal cases, a separate PennDOT suspension can start before the criminal case is even close to finished, sometimes before the criminal case is even filed. If you don't understand both tracks, you can make a decision in court that creates problems you never saw coming. Why the first few days matter more than people realize. The first few days after a DUI arrest aren't just emotionally rough. They're strategically important. Memories fade fast. Dash cam footage, body cam footage, receipts, text message, timestamps, witness details, medical records, all of that matters more when gathered early. Small details can become significant later. Whether the traffic stop was actually legal, whether the blood draw followed proper procedure, whether the field sobriety testing was done under conditions that made a fair evaluation even possible. Early action also protects your options. Program eligibility, filing deadlines, ARD applications. These are easier to manage when you're not scrambling the week before hearing. Waiting until the last minute to get help is like trying to patch a roof during a rainstorm. You can still do something, but you lose the room to work carefully. So right now, today, gather every piece of paper you received. Charging documents, bail paperwork, towing receipts, any hospital paperwork, put them in one folder and write down a timeline of what happened while the details are still fresh. What a DUI lawyer actually does. People sometimes think a DUI lawyer just stands next to you in court. The job is a lot more than that. Reviewing the stop, arrest, and testing. Not every DUI arrest was handled correctly. A lawyer looks at whether the traffic stop was legally justified in the first place, whether the officer had valid grounds to continue the investigation, and whether the arrest was supported by real evidence. Field sobriety tests, those balance and coordination tests on the side of the road, are not as objective as they look. Lighting, weather, footwear, medical conditions, nerves, uneven pavement, all of it can affect performance. A lawyer looks at how those tests were explained, administered, and scored. The same goes for chemical testing. Breath and blood testing both come with rules, timing requirements, and chain of custody standards. In blood cases especially, technical mistakes can matter enormously, and they're easy to miss if you only look at the result number and not the process that produced it. Looking for ways to reduce the damage. Sometimes the best result is beating the charge. Sometimes the real win is reducing the damage, negotiating for reduced charges, lighter penalties, better plea terms, or treatment-focused outcomes. In first defense cases, legal help may improve your shot at ARD and keep one bad night from becoming a long-term record problem. Here's what people underestimate. Pleading guilty too fast feels like the easy path because it ends the uncertainty. But that shortcut can cost you your license, spike your insurance for years, limit future employment options, and create harsher consequences if you're ever charged again. Handling court strategy and paperwork. Missed hearing dates, misunderstood release conditions, incomplete ARD paperwork. These create problems that have nothing to do with the original stop. A lawyer tracks deadlines, files motions when needed, and handles communication you should not be managing casually on your own. When hiring a lawyer is especially important. Some DUI cases are plainly higher risk. If your situation falls into any of these categories, getting legal help isn't just smart, it's close to essential. If this isn't your first DUI, prior offenses change everything in Pennsylvania. Mandatory minimums increase, license suspensions get longer, jail exposure becomes much more real. There's less room for error, and one strategic mistake in a repeat case can have a much larger impact than it would in a first offense situation. If your BAC was high or a blood test was involved. Higher BAC means higher penalty tiers in Pennsylvania. Blood test cases can also raise technical issues, timing, storage, handling, documentation, that are easy to miss if you're only looking at the number on the report and not the process that created it. If drugs were involved. Drug DUI cases are fact-heavy and technical. A substance can show up in your system even when the actual impairment at the time of driving is generally in question, especially with prescription medications and marijuana. These cases need careful handling. If your job depends on your license or your record. If your paycheck depends on driving, your case is automatically more serious. CDL holders face especially harsh consequences. Commercial driving rules can be triggered by a single DUI, even if the arrest was in your personal vehicle. And licensed professionals, nurses, teachers, healthcare workers, contractors, can face board scrutiny and background check problems long after the court case is closed. The common reasons people skip a lawyer, and the catch. I want to be honest about the reasons people decide to go it alone, because they're understandable. Cost is real, so is embarrassment, and sometimes it's just exhaustion, the urge to get the whole thing over with and stop thinking about it. The catch is that the reasons people skip a lawyer are often the exact reasons they end up regretting it. It's just a first DUI. A first DUI can still carry license consequences, fines, classes, probation, and a record impact that follows you on background checks for years. And first offense cases are often where smart handling matters most, because the opportunities to protect your future are still open. I'm just going to plead guilty and move on. This is the most common instinct, and the most expensive one. A guilty plea isn't just a way to end the case. It's a decision with long-term consequences. You may be giving up negotiating opportunities, ARD eligibility, defense arguments you didn't know existed, and a full understanding of what's about to happen to your license and record. Moving on sounds good until the insurance bill arrives or a future employer runs a background check. Can I just use a public defender? If you qualify financially, a public defender is a real option. An appointed counsel handles DUI cases every day. The practical difference with private counsel is usually time, access, and the ability to focus more closely on specific details of your case. The right question isn't public versus private in the abstract. It's whether you're getting clear, case-specific advice before making decisions that can be undone, or can't be undone. ARD and first defense options. For many first-time offenders in central Pennsylvania, ARD is the part of this conversation that matters most. ARD, Accelerated Rehabilitative Disposition, is a pretrial program available in some first offense cases that can help you avoid the full weight and standard of a standard conviction if you qualify and complete the program. Successful completion may lead to dismissal of the charge and puts you in a far better position than a straight guilty plea. ARD is not automatic. Eligibility depends on your prior history, the facts of the stop, whether there was an accident or injury, and county-specific practices. And that last part matters more than people expect. What happens in Cumberland County may not play out identically in Dauphin County or especially York County. A lawyer helps by making sure your case is presented correctly, your paperwork is complete, deadlines are met, and avoidable mistakes don't knock you out of consideration before you even get started. If ARD isn't available, whether because of the facts or county practice, that doesn't mean the case is hopeless. It means the strategy shifts towards challenging the evidence, negotiating for better terms, or focusing on damage control. Sometimes the goal becomes avoiding the worst version of an outcome rather than chasing a perfect one. That still matters enormously. The risks of going it alone. A DUI case can look simple on the surface. Police report, test result, court date, done. But that's a bit like seeing a small water stain on your ceiling and assuming it's just condensation. The problem is usually bigger and more technical than it first appears. Missing defenses you didn't know existed. Many DUI defenses are procedural, meaning the issue isn't obvious from paperwork in front of you. An unlawful stop, poor field sobriety testing conditions, improper chemical test procedures, chain of custody problems in a blood case. If you don't know what to look for, you won't find it. Making statements that hurt your case. People talk too much, especially when they're stressed. In court, with police, on the phone, even casually with someone connected to the case, small comments can become evidence. Trying to explain yourself usually doesn't help. It fills in gaps for the prosecution instead. Misunderstanding the long-term consequences. The sentence is only part of the picture. A DUI can affect your record, your insurance, future DUI penalties, professional licensure, certain jobs, and even international travel. The cheapest looking option at the start can become the most expensive one over the next 5 years. So do you need a DUI lawyer in Pennsylvania? Technically, no. Practically, in most cases, yes. Especially if your license, your job, your professional credentials, or your future sentencing exposure are on the line. The decision comes down to risk versus cost. And in a lot of DUI cases, the risk of going it alone is much higher than people realize when they're standing in the kitchen the morning after an arrest, trying to make sense of a stack of paperwork. Before you make any permanent decisions, get a consultation. Understand what's actually in play. Know what your options are before you close any doors. If you've been charged with a DUI in Pennsylvania and want a clear picture of where your case stands, reach out. Free consultation, no pressure, link is in the description. Subscribe for more straight talk on DUI, Pennsylvania DUI law. See you in the next video.